Alex Hernandez was once a rising prospect in the UFC's lightweight division. Now his career has not been going so well ever since he fought Cowboy. This is the story of how Cowboy ended Alex Hernandez's career. Alex started his career in 2012 as an amateur, going 3-0 before moving to the pros. During his pro fight run, Alex would obtain a record of 9-1 before getting signed with the UFC. His first fight was a tough match against the now number 4th ranked lightweight Beneil Dariush. At the time, Beneil was supposed to fight Bobby Green. The fight later then got cancelled due to Bobby having an undisclosed injury, which in return, Bobby was replaced by Alexander the Great Ape Hernandez. And in that fight, he made a promising debut and knocked out Beneil in 42 seconds of the very first round. But there was a controversy. At the beginning of the round, there was a fake glove touch executed by Alex. This was a very dirty move by Alex. Who knows, if he had never done that fake glove touch, that knockout might have never happened. But I'm not taking any credit away from Alex. He had a beautiful execution on that punch. At the time, Beneil was ranked number 12 in the lightweight division. This put a spotlight on Alex, making him a prospect to look out for. Alexander Hernandez was now the number 13th ranked lightweight in the world after beating Dariush. His next fight in the UFC was against Oliver Aubin-Mercer, who is a Canadian mixed martial artist who now fights in the PFL and recently became a PFL lightweight world champion. After losing to Alexander Hernandez, Oliver would lose his next 2 fights against Gilbert Burns and Arman Tsarukyan. As of now, both of these fighters are in the top 10 in their respective divisions. Alex was then moved up in the rankings to number 11. He was supposed to fight Trinaldo, but instead Alex faced an older Donald Cerrone at the ripe age of 35 years old. This is where the story begins. Alex was already on the big show, only 2 fights in, and headlining the prelims on ESPN against a legend like Donald. And this is where arguably the best example of trash talk gone wrong happens. This is why I got inspired to make this video. There is a great video created by that Cray Tray. I highly recommend checking the video out. During the interviews before the fight, Alex came out very confident in his ability to get the win over Cerrone, as he should. But 2 days prior to their match at UFC Fight Night 143 in Brooklyn, New York, on January 17, 2019, held their press conference. Hernandez expressed his belief that he would defeat Cerrone during the press conference with assurance and confidence. He discussed his training camp and his preparation for the fight, claiming that he was in the finest physical condition of his life and prepared to face Cerrone. He also talked about his training camp and how he had been preparing for the fight. This is where things get heated between the two. Alex was talking about how Cerrone's persona is a big distraction and calling him an insecure little lad.
Through the fighter, I'm looking at the man, and I think the persona and everything's just a big distraction. I just see myself facing an insecure little lad swinging on a saddle with a pop gun and a feather in his hat.
Cerrone seemed very relaxed and confident, as he often does before fights. He acknowledged Hernandez's trash-talking skills, but he also made it clear that he would not back down from a challenge, and he could not wait for Saturday. Cerrone went on to say that, "If you got something to say it to my face, mother." Things got heated between the two, and eventually they faced each other off in the face-off and had some heated words to exchange, which left things heated between the two. Leading up to the fight, there was a lot of talk about how Hernandez was going to be the next big thing in the UFC. He had burst onto the scene with a spectacular knockout victory over Beneil Dariush in his UFC debut. He had since raked up one more win, including a dominant decision over Oliver Aubin-Mercer. On the other hand, Cerrone had been a staple in the UFC for years and was coming off a win over Mike Perry in his last fight. Alex was the favorite in this fight, and most people expected the young prospect to get a dominant victory over the veteran. The actual fight itself was fast-moving, action-packed event. Hernandez pushed it into the battle early, hoping to outmuscle Cerrone with his strength and speed. He looked to be in control of the battle after landing a few powerful blows early on. Cerrone, on the other hand, persevered through the chaos and started to find his range, scoring some of his own huge strikes. As the bout went on, Cerrone took control, frustrating Hernandez with his knowledge and expertise. Hernandez appeared to be slowing down as he began to score more and more shots. Hernandez was then knocked out in the second round with a head kick from Cerrone, who then finished the fight with some brutal ground and pound. Ever since this fight, Alex has not been looking the same. I feel as if this fight has messed him up mentally. He had such confidence going into the fight with Cerrone that when he got dominated by a veteran of the sport, it probably made him realize that he's not as good as he thinks he is. After the Cerrone fight, Alex would get a win over Francisco Trinaldo via unanimous decision, then would go on to lose against Drew Dober, then would get a win against Chris, then would lose against Thiago Moses, then would get a win against Mike Breeden, and then he would get 2 losses against Renato and Billy, and more recently, he would get a win over Jim Miller. It's difficult to say for certain whether Alex was pushed onto the spotlight too quickly. On one hand, Hernandez had a very impressive start to his UFC career, winning his first 3 fights, including a highlight reel knockout over Beneil. This led to a lot of hype and excitement around Hernandez, with many fans and analysts considering him to be a top prospect in the UFC lightweight division. However, on the other hand, he had only been fighting professionally for a few years and had relatively limited experience compared to the other fighters. This could have put a lot of pressure on Hernandez to perform, which can be challenging for even the most experienced fighters. Additionally, the UFC is known for promoting and hyping up young prospects, and sometimes these fighters can struggle to live up to the expectations placed upon them. This can be due to a variety of factors, including the quality of their opponents, the level of competition in the UFC, or simply the mental and physical toll of competing at the highest level of the sport. Let's take Sean O'Malley for example. Sean had a lot of hype around him in his early career, getting big wins and flashy knockouts, but he took his time fighting tough opponents until he eventually reached a level where he felt he could fight someone like Peter Yan. Obviously, he would get a controversial win over Piotr, but he was the number 11th ranked and Peter at the time was number 1. So a big step up, and Sean getting the fight that close in itself was a testament to how good he actually was. The point is, I feel as if Alex should have taken his time with his fights and slowly raked up his wins instead of jumping the gun. Another thing I would like to add is that Alex would fight with a lot of ego and pride. And it is okay to fight with ego and pride, but you also need to have a level of awareness. But it's also worth noting that Alex is a very talented fighter with a lot of potential, with time and experience. As he just started reaching his prime age at the ripe age of 30, he could continue to develop, and we may even see him achieve great things in the future.